We're live.
We're live.
So today we're talking LTZ music, right?
Yeah.
So for those of you who are joining us, I'm Kayleen Winter, and this is Andrew Jocelyn, my very good friend, and we are expanding the Lesson Zero universe. I'm an author who has written a rock and roll romance series. And today we are really continuing the sort of expansion of the LTZ universe. And I'll explain a little bit of what's going on. So, as those of you who follow me know, I write these books, and the books we're into the encores now. So, I've written five full length novels and two novellas, and we're now expanding into video, and we're expanding into audiobooks, which are going to be released next week on Patty's Day. And as part of the audiobook bonanza, um, there's a story. We're actually going to be starting to release music. The LTZ Lesson Zero band actually has music. How in the world does a fake band, they're not fake to us, right? All of us in the LTZ world. But how in the world does a fictional band get music? Well, as many of you guys know, I have a secret past in the music industry. And my secret past in the music industry sort of fuels the stories, it sort of embellishes things as we know them. But I've also had the great fortune to meet and work with some amazing people, like my friend who's joining me, Andrew Jocelyn. So, welcome, Andrew. I would love, Andrew, for you to tell everybody your story. Who is Andrew Jocelyn?
Oh, that's a very storied odyssey. But hi everybody. My name's Andrew Jocelyn. I'm a producer, songwriter, orchestrator. I got my start actually playing violin. At at my core, I'm an orchestra classical kid that was always wanting to play rock music. I fell in love with the sounds of Roxy Music, U2, Tears for Fears, and other stuff in the 80s, and was always obsessed with I want to be a violinist in a band like that. So um, I fast forward, I joined a rock band, like a punk world band in college, started touring, and kind of got my feet wet in the music industry just by happenstance and just making it happen. So, um, I, yeah, I'm Northwest based, Pacific Northwest. My career really got focused in Seattle. I moved to the Bay Area in about 2005, um, but quickly got into the camps with like Macklemore and Ryan Lewis, David Bazan, Mark Lanigan. Started just working my way up, and then yeah, I my discography just kind of expands beyond that. So, if you're very interested, it's there's a lot there. I've worked on over 400 songs with a variety of different artists. My main kind of gig right now is I do what's called pop arranging. So I do, string arrangements and big horn and symphonic stuff for rock bands. So I did a full show with Nancy Wilson from Heart of Seattle Symphony. I do film scores, and for the Less Than Zero stuff, I was essentially the record producer and also one of the co-writers, along with the imitable, right? Isn't that the right word? You're the author, Sue Ennis, who is one of the amazing co-writers with the band Heart. She's done a lot of other things ever since, and Sue and I teamed up. Kayleen approached us with this crazy Spinal Tapian world, and we we were really excited to try and do something totally different. And as you could probably tell from my background, I'm very focused in kind of chamber pop, orchestral, cinematic kind of stuff. So when I was asked to produce a grunge rock record, um, growing up in the '90s in Seattle, I knew all the discography. I knew all the artists. I knew the sound and the feel and the angst. And there was a part of me that's always screamed that I wanted to do that kind of music. So it was this perfect confluence of events where it's like, yeah, I would love to try and figure out how to produce a grunge rock record for a non-existent band and expand this. It's essentially world building. What we're doing with Kayleen is, most fans, their first real introduction to any band, let alone if it's through a romance novel or through the real thing, is through the music. You hear that first song on the radio and there's something about it that just draws you in. So it almost seemed a travesty not to have music to showcase this band and to really kind of give fans a real insight to, hey, like, this is the real world of Less Than Zero, and we want you to kind of experience it the full 360. So it
But
was
I
really
love that.
fun
And
to.
the story that I'm going to turn my speaker down. But what I love is that, Andrew, you and I were working on a different project, and I think you were one of the very first people, way before I published.
Yep.
You were one of the very first people I told that I was going to become an author, and I had the series in mind. And when I told you about it, we totally giggled, and we were like, you were like, you could not believe it. You're like, what? Is that a real thing? And
Right. Well, it's one of those things where it's like, you and I are good friends. We've known each other for years and worked, and one thing you mentioned is, you work in the industry. You know it, and you can legitimize the experiences of the artists, the venue owners, the whole process. There's a lot of authors and a lot of people that write about the music industry that don't know it. They don't know the real trials and tribulations of what goes into it in the background. So the fact that you know you work in the industry, you've done booking, promotion, the legal aspects of the industry, and you've worked with me in that aspect and taught me a lot. And so when you first told me that you were moonlighting as a rock star romance novelist, I it was one of those things where it felt not out of the realm of possibility, but it was also just like, wow, how many more hats do you wear? Like, what else are you
well,
doing? Like, do you write, like, cookbooks for touring musicians? Like, is there something else that I'm not unaware of?
well, I mean, I think that a lot of people who know, who know Kayleen, they know that I have this background in music promotion and music, but and also in media and technology. What many people don't know is that I am not a full time author. For me, this is a great joy, and I am embracing it with literally everything that I have, which is kind of how I approach all my things that I do in life. But yeah, this is. I wish that sometimes I wish I had days where I could work full time on this, but I really, to become an author, especially a self published author in this day and age, it really does take the help of all your friends. And when, well, and first of all, I think that there's in the ground world, like in the romance world, people know there's tropes, and rock star romance is one of these tropes. And you'd mentioned it, like that's kind of why I got into it, because I think that there's two different versions. There's a lot of rock star romance authors who are just really great writers, but they are fans, and so they write about it as they imagine things would be, as probably I would have imagined they were back when I was, really a fan before I worked in it. And one of the things that was super important to me, which we can kind of start getting into the discussion of how we wrote this, how you and Sue really collaborated and wrote writing the songs. And for those that are watching, Sue will be with me next week too. We couldn't make the schedules work where Andrew and Sue could be here at the same time because, well, shoot, they're both busy. Uh, But
Lots of musicians, that's why.
well, and what's really was really important to me about writing this is to actually, have all the really cool things about romance where you meet, there's all this, the all the romantic stuff, all of the stuff that everybody loves about romance. But when you add sort of the layer on top of it about the rock star stuff, there's some very unique things in as a musician when you are trying to sustain a love relationship. And Andrew, you're married, you know this. Musicians, when they get to a certain level of success, have to travel. They are in their head. They're people are very creative. You have to get the stuff that's in your head out. Um, and believe it or not, a lot of musicians who you see on stage and are these powerful lead singers or guitar players or just performers, so many of those performers are not really super great conversationalists, for instance.
Right.
They're not there's a certain amount of shyness and insecurity and things that go along with being a creative person. And whether you're an author like me and you're putting your art out into the world, that's a very vulnerable thing to do as a creative, right? I mean, and so I wanted to hit on all of those things and some of the things that really are very difficult about sustaining a relationship, for instance, which is separation and and
Separation
so, I mean, I'd love to hear your take on that.
Yeah, I've toured for 15 years, so the struggle is real when it really comes to touring because it is the most unnatural space for any human being to exist in for long periods of time. And it's a weird kind of thing of the music industry where once you start touring, it's kind of hard to stop because the most money most artists make is on the road, but it's also the most time intensive and expensive. So it's you make more money and it's a better kind of financially it's better to be on the road longer usually. So some of these tours 3 4 6 months, like it's intense. And when I started touring, when it got into really intense. So I did strings for Macklemore for many years, and then did stuff for Judy Collins, David Bazan, and a number of other artists. And there was my first band, Handful 11. We toured relentlessly, and so for example, when I was with Macklemore, the time zone shift was immensely disruptive. So like you fly over to Europe and already, the first night you're off, it's hard to sleep, and I actually started developing really severe insomnia. Um, and an anxiety syndrome where anytime I was in a moving vehicle, I couldn't fall asleep. So if it was a plane, a train, a bus, it got to the point where my anxiety would peak so much, I just couldn't sleep. My body wouldn't let me, even if I took Ambien, even if I would do cocktails of melatonin and Benadryl, and I tried everything underneath the sun. But my anxiety, it was always this sense of I was just not in control. You know, um, Going for years like that, I started developing like adrenal gland like disruption. And that's just the physical. That doesn't take into account all the relationships I burned through, the romantic kind of entanglements. And I mean, it's difficult to be on the road because there's it's anxiety ridden. You're exposed. Like I think with social media, it gets even weirder too, because you're constantly before and after a show, you kind of don't really, there's not a lot of healthy practices in place. You almost have to create a new routine every time you're in a new venue. So a lot of time you go straight to social media and you're like, was I tagged in something? Did a fan like shout out to me? Oh, this other guy in the band had more shout outs. Wait, someone's getting more followers. Why am I getting more followers? And all of a sudden you're locked in this weird psychological, like, your value is tied very much to a very bizarre world that's not real. So, as musicians, it's a weird existence, and the anxiety, the temptation of being on the road too, when you're away from your loved ones, that's weird. And the finally, like, you kind of you're in a bubble when you're on the road. Everyone's like, "It's amazing. You go and see Paris and Dubai and, Malaysia, and you're touring the world's greatest parking lots. You're not really getting to see these cities. Maybe on an off day, for sure, but for the most part, it's it's a pretty lonely existence, and you exist in a very bizarre little bubble, along with the touring staff, the managers, the riggings, your monitor guy, you develop a real strong relationship with all your road dogs and everyone that's a part of the crew. But like, beyond that, it's hard to build new relationships with anyone outside this bubble, let alone stay in contact with friends and family. You can do it,
Well, I mean, you
but
touched on just that. I think that that was the thing that people don't realize the most is that I think Macklemore is a really good probably example because I remember when you went out on tour, um, and the tour was a tour, and then the next thing you know, more dates are added and more dates are added,
yep,
and suddenly, was it 3 years later and you're back?
yeah. Well, it was crazy because for us, we the heist in 2012 was one of these just like out quote unquote out of nowhere success stories. Ben and Ryan and the team, like I'd been working with them since 2008. We'd been putting in the time and the effort for years, for 4 years to build up to that momentum and that moment. And but the crazy thing is, we just started touring, and then all of a sudden, Thrift Shop came out, and then all of a sudden, this song came out, and Same Love was released separately by somebody, by a part of Broad. I can't remember. There was a piece of legislation in Washington. All these little pieces all of a sudden created a landslide, and there became a moment where we're in Montana, and it was, oh my God, we're about to go to Europe. We're about to do a world tour. We're completely booked. It just happened, and it was like, if you had plans, you're not anymore. This is what's happening. And it was, but in the moment, you're just so excited and taken in with the sheer just avalanche of it all. And it's amazing and super exciting, but no one can prepare you for the psychological and physical toll that takes. Yeah, it's amazing, but the other side of it is that ramp up is a drug, and you get addicted to it very fast, and very few people are prepared for the downside once it's not there. Because once you're off touring, all of a sudden, all the psychological elements of just that self doubt, the imposter syndrome, all of it comes sweeping right back. And, this is where a lot of bands, if they have a raging success on their first record, they have sophomore syndrome where they can't get that second record because they're trying to achieve the success and the glory of this first record everyone fell in love with. And, it's a lot of bands live and die on that, man. It's a this is
Well, and I
this is an
think
industry for the faint of heart.
no, and I mean I think that that's another misnomer too because the music industry now is a very different industry than it was when, for instance, I was really full time working in music and working with some of the bands that I worked with. You don't have necessarily the same level of support at the label that is going to allow you to really germinate your career and like start off with the same freshman album that sort of builds. And it's really a lot of it is put on the artist, just like almost every creative, including there's a lot of similarities between self-published authors in many ways, right? Where you have to do it all. You have to go and find your fans. You have to build your fan base. You have to do all that yourself. And then
You have to build the
I
team,
would say
your
for
own
many
business.
artists, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just saying, you have to build your own team, your own business. You have your own tax accountant. Usually, you have to have all this in place before a manager or even a record label will even sniff at you, let alone sign you.
Right. Which is again, very different from when I worked in it, where you had a whole team. And, then it was just a matter of getting your whole team to sort of work together to
Right.
get you going. But I mean, one of the things that I like to talk about in my books too is just like when you're, just, well, two things. One, day to day on the road, like it's not what you think. You're what you touched on it. You don't just pull into Paris and everybody goes on an adventure and gets on the tour bus and looks around
Goes
Paris.
to the Louvre or whatever, and just kicks it. Yeah, it's not.
And even on days off, it's not like you're just like sometimes you're just too exhausted. Like that might be the only time you have to yourself, right? Like if you get a hotel room and you're not on the bus going to the next place, if you're not at that point where you're on the private jet or you know what I mean and jetting to every place, which how many bands really get to that level, right?
I would say 90% never do. You know, but of
Yeah,
course.
like, oh, there's Jeff, we have Jeff has joined us. um but that's kind of where we'll bring Jeff on in a second when we see his face because I see he's logged in but I don't see him yet. um but yeah, that's kind of what I so that's my realism in the books. It's like it really is trying to deal with that. I do talk a lot about mental illness and a lot of the
Very real.
toll it takes
Hmm.
on people. I like I said, I worked for a lot of bands in the day, and when Jeff gets on, I want to definitely do a little tribute to somebody that is special to all of us. But it's really hard when you see the toll it takes on people's physical health, and and again the addiction issues that come in the music industry because as you get more and more popular, just like with any sort of famous people who become famous, you start getting this bubble becomes a lot of people that are yes men and women, right? Well, it looks like Jeff's joined us. Andrew, do you feel happy to have Jeff join us now too?
It's Jeff
Hi,
Fielder.
Hi.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Sorry, it's a little dark. Let me get some lights
No
on.
problem.
I'm like getting blasted by the sun over here, and he's like in the mole cave.
Wait a minute. We don't complain about that.
No, I know. I'm just saying the night and day difference is appalling.
Hi,
Hi,
Jeff. Welcome.
thanks. I can barely hear Andrew.
I know Andrew's a little faint in the old.
Yeah.
He's our sound guy too, right?
Yeah, I know, right? It's
I can
we'll,
kind of hear
we'll
him.
figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
Hi, I
So,
just saw this.
welcome, Jeff. Oh, wait, where did Jeff go? He left. Oh, I love these. Oh, there he's back. So, Jeff, Andrew and I were just, I know I have a little bit of an echo, and I'm sorry. I'm just trying to adjust my sound so I can hear everybody. We were just talking a little bit about the rock star romance stuff and how the books in my books we're trying to make it pretty realistic about life on the road, and so that's kind of where you've joined us in the middle of our on the road conversation. Jeff. Anyways, all sorts of fun stuff, but so let's talk a little bit about how we actually got all of the stuff from the books into these songs because that was kind of fun, right? We started having these conversations. Hi, Jeff, you're back.
Okay, good. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Can you
Hey,
hear me okay?
Okay. I'll put up brakes on that really quick. So, welcome, Jeff.
hi.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How's everybody doing?
We're good. So, we were just talking all about the books and how we led up to the point that we have this project, which is, you know, it's just such a fun project for me, and it's such a fun project for all my readers. But we were
Hmm.
talking about the real life world of music and how I try to bring that into the books, into
Yeah.
this whole situation. And you've been on the road yourself for many years as well. Do you want to
Yes.
give everybody a little bio of yourself? And for everybody there, Jeff did a lot of work on the guitar and the musicianship in all of these songs that you're going to be hearing.
Yeah. Is it just you and Andrew, or is there more
Just
people here?
us.
Okay, cool.
Just
Chris is joining us another time because his day job called and he had to show up for it.
Oh yeah, sure. Well, that'll happen. Let's see. Well, I mean, I've done a lot of stuff. I've played with Lanigan for 13 years. You guys
Yeah.
know that.
Yep.
So that was a lot, that took me all over the world and then some, you know. But outside of that, I've been playing with Amy Ray for 10 years. She's one of the Indigo girls. And then I'll play with the girls when they're in town, they're great. And I think if everything goes right, I'm in Nancy Wilson's band as of soon. So we'll see.
Yay.
It hasn't been totally confirmed, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, we are going to play the song that Nancy's tried to steal, and then she gave it back, and then she wants it back again. So we will be
Right.
playing that in a bit.
Yeah, because Sue, right? It's all Sue.
Yeah.
I don't know much about this project is the thing. You know what I mean? Andrew asked me to drop some solos on some pretty rad modern rock. So
What do you want to see?
Look at
This
this.
is you.
Oh, wow. That is me.
That's
How'd you get that
you.
picture?
That's Zane, the guitar player,
stealing
Jeff.
my picture.
Fantastic. Remember the
So-
CNC Music Factory where they had the singer do it in the studio and then they brought the chick in for the video? Something like that. Huh?
It's sort of, I don't like to make light because here's the thing. I'm creating, on my creative side, I'm writing these books which have a lot of realism in it. But my market is, women within my age range that want to read romance books that love rock stars, right?
Cool, yeah.
And so, I have, honestly, all of the guys that have modeled for their parts in the band are really super great guys. And they remind me a lot, honestly, of when I was really young and working with, all the bands that I worked with, which includes, so I do want to give a shout out to Mark because I worked with Mark and the Screaming Trees when he was managed by the management office. And I'm still close with Gary and it's just been this one's really tough for me because it just, it's probably Screaming Trees are my favorite band that I ever worked with. And it was,
wow. Yeah.
and, it's just like, I'm still very close with Susan, who it was her manager. And
Totally.
it's a very tight music community, as we know. And for you guys worked with Mark recently. I hadn't seen him in a long time. But for those that are listening, it's Mark Lanigan, who was the lead singer of the Screaming Trees, but went on to have amazing success as a solo artist. But, I think part of it is this is a love letter to the musician friends and the love letter to Seattle and to those people that I've, grown up with, really.
Yeah. It's
In their
cool.
lives, their real lives.
Yeah. Rad.
So anyways, cheers to Mark.
Here's to Mark.
Cheers to Mark.
I'm doing that a lot lately.
I know it's just hard. We've lost a lot of our singers, our at least our famous singers here in Seattle are.
Yeah.
Anyways, but what we were talking about right before you joined was this project, and the project is Andrew and I Andrew's the first person I told that I was going to take a step out of my sort of real life and become a romance author, and he was like, well, are you going to do music? And I was like, I wrote lyrics. And he goes, you did? And I did. And they were, we'll never see them.
We worked on
Sue and Andrew have seen them. But, I did it because a lot of the rock star romance authors have, they will write poems or things like that. A couple of them are musicians themselves and they have written songs. But I was like, I hadn't thought that I don't have the talent personally to do it. So Andrew said, well, I want to do it. And then I met Sue for lunch a week later. And I told her, well, Andrew said that he might want to write songs. She said, I want to write songs with Andrew. And all of a sudden, like there's a thing.
That's rad.
And that was like what, 2.5 years ago, maybe?
Hmm.
This was
It's been
it
that
was
long.
Amazing.
literally you and I had we Jeff like literally Jolene and I just had a or Kayleen. I don't know if I'm supposed to say your real name.
Kayleen.
There we go. Kayleen and I had a hangout where she was interviewing me over for a podcast of hers, and then this just it was just kind of like right before the pandemic, and it was like, oh, this is what's this could be fun. Let's try and figure it out, and then yeah, pandemic hit, and it was like I got some time,
Yeah.
so some time to try and make some rock star songs.
So Andrew and Sue kind of interviewed me, and I gave them the books and stuff. But they interviewed me about like what the characters were and what they were doing, and sort of what the themes were. And then I just don't think I could imagine songs that capture like kind of the scope of where the band was at. So the theory is, Jeff, just because I know you haven't read the books, because I'm guessing you're not a romance reader, but that's okay. But the theory is like this guy meets the singer meets this girl, and she she's told like this mentor to the band tells her, look, they are going on the road and they're going to be away, and you should let him have his shot to be in this band, because he came from a bad background and he wanted, this is his way to make it. So she breaks it off with him, and he writes a seminal album of breakup songs that propel them into the stratosphere.
Right, I got you. Yeah.
So there you have it. That is the theme of the book's Lesson Zero. So tell me how you guys collaborated on this because this is the mystery to me. Like I was in the dark, and I know that I'd get little snippets, and then all of a sudden it was like, what is going on? This is amazing. So I'd love to hear your collaboration process.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, was I left big. So in writing the music, like the instrumental side of stuff, and the top line with Sue, there was spots in the songs where I always envisioned a ragingly awesome guitar solo. I'm not a guitarist, and I was just like, Jeff and I have collaborated on a number of stuff. We've worked on a lot of artist projects together, and he helped like out. I had Jeff a couple of years back come to my studio in Pioneer Square and bring like 8 guitars or something for a Western film score, and this Western music thing, and I was just like, I don't know quite what I'm doing, but he just killed it, and he's always been in the back of my mind as the guy that I'm always gonna hire. So when it came up that this project was just like this rock grunge epic, throwing all the adjectives, I called Jeff and explained the project, and I was just like, this is crazy. And anyway, I was just like, hey Jeff, can you do this type of music? And then Jeff, take it away.
Yeah. Let's see. Andrew called me, and he said, I'm doing this thing, and we need some shred guitar. Which could mean kind of a lot of things, actually. But I'm like, I think I can pull that off. And so I think the original idea was that I was going to come into the studio, and we were going to do it over the course of a couple days. But he sent me the stuff just to kind of listen to. And I have this is functioning here. So
Yeah.
I just kind of sent him one. And I was like, I can just do it here if you guys sign off on this stuff. And it's kind of more fun because I don't have to leave. I can kind of work at my own pace, kind of thing.
Yep.
And so the first one went well. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll just send you the stuff as it comes, And I think it was over the course of about a week and a half. It happened pretty quick.
Yeah, it was.
And, it's funny, generally, not since I was in high school, even then, really. But it hasn't come up to really shred, like guitar shredding, like 80s style, And I can do it, it turns out.
very well, it
You
turns
know,
out.
I could do it, and I could figure out the guitar sounds and stuff like that. So it was really fun to do. You know, and
And
it
the
happened.
flamenco?
Yeah, right. That was more in my kind of wheelhouse. That kind of acousticy stuff. You
I
know.
think that's the thing that shocks me, Jeff, is you were just like, oh, I don't do this. And it came so naturally. Like most of those are first takes.
Right. Yeah.
I think maybe there was one or two things I'm like, oh, change this. But
Right. Yeah. Sure.
like
Yeah.
first take, and I was like, yeah, perfect. Okay.
Yeah, it was super fun to do. And then just to make it sound, you know, because I do a fair amount of session work and, you know, it's kind of what I do for a living, this kind of thing, you know. So the idea is to make it sound like it belongs there, you know, just right away, you know.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it was great having the music so fleshed out because then I could just take it and be like, well, I think that this sounds like it should belong there. And then it kind of did. So everybody was super easy about it. So I was like, okay, great. And it was really fun to do. And after it was 4 songs, right?
Yep.
I was like, oh, I wish there was more.
Well, so why it happened so fast is because next week the audiobooks of the series. I'm gonna put Timeless back up just so you can see yourself again, Jeff. There you are. There you are.
Wait, let me see.
So in this book, that's a guitar player, and I talk very much about how he's a savant guitar player, and his dad was a famous guitar player in the 90s. So
That's cool.
Carrying on the torch.
Yeah.
And so you definitely fulfilled the role. Oh, there you go. Andrew has his copy of Endless. Very good.
Great.
Um,
That's what I feel like inside.
I know.
That's
Well,
how
you know,
I
and everybody, you know,
that guy.
rewind, 5 or 6 years, right?
This is
But yeah, so that's kind of where we came to this place where we now have music, and it's going to, each audiobook that's coming out next week will have a one of the songs on it, and then we are going to announce the date today of the EP is going to come out. We're actually going to do an LTZ EP that will be available on all platforms. And Andrew came in and helped us register everything and set up our accounts with BMI. So actually, LTZ has its own ASCAP account, and and so it's going to be up. All the music is going to be up on all platforms. I played it for two of my DJ friends and one of my former news anchor friends, and or she's not a former friend. She was a former news anchor, but is a friend. And everybody is going nuts. Like everybody that hears the music is like, "What? This is incredible!"
Yeah, cool.
So, should we play "Kick It"? What do you think?
Yeah, Kick It. That's a
We'll
jam.
play "Kick It."
Good jam.
Okay, now Chris is going to help me figure out where "Kick It" is in my little.
Left behind, worried, blind. I gotta shut the demons down. How do I get you off my mind? How do I blow this candle out? You got me hooked on you. You always pulled me through. Now I'm shaking in the cold. I got too high on you. I got too much to lose. There's a sickness in my soul. 40 inch
All right. There's some shredding.
Shredding.
Um,
Echoes.
so Chris
I
is the
know.
tall guy with the shirt off, right? The singer. Am I right about that?
The singer is the guy with the one that Andrew showed you. Wait, I'll find it. Hold on. I have all the books here. This is the this is the singer.
Okay, gotcha.
Singer, guitar player.
There's
That's you.
books. I see. Let me
That's
see
you.
that. Okay, there we go. Yeah. Wow.
This is our drummer.
There's
Where am I?
covers.
There
I
we
get
go.
it now. Wow. Oh my
Yep.
goodness gracious.
And our bass player.
He is the bass player, that guy. Yeah.
He's tall.
Funky.
He's 6'8"
Oh
in
my-
real life.
Wow.
So shocking. Well, you guys, I mean, this is seriously the fact that we're creating this world. I can't even tell you how much I appreciate you guys for doing this for me. And I just feel like really the luckiest person ever because I'm realizing my own creative dream of writing and to create this world and all the videos and stuff that are going to go along with it and these audiobooks. I just, my goal is to get this out to the world, not just on with the books, but I'm hoping that people will, want to buy the EP and we can make that happen too, because the music stands on its own. It's so good. So,
Cool. Yay.
Sweet.
so well,
Yeah.
the next week, I just want to tell you guys, Sue Ennis is going to join me next week. And we will have, over the next few weeks, we're going to have some of the audiobook narrators, and we're going to have we're going to have Chris, who did the singing on all of our songs. And if you just follow me on my own social media platforms on TikTok and Facebook and Instagram, we will give you a schedule of all of our different interviews. And we are going to post this interview so you can replay it if you were not able to join us. But I really appreciate you guys joining for a few minutes and just chatting audiobooks and chatting LTZ EP.
LTZ.
LTZ.
Awesome.
Yes, everybody rock. All right, you guys, thank you again so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, that was super fun. Thanks.
All right. Bye, everyone.